welcome to the Doug and Mike Show. I'm Doug.
Hey, and I'm Mike.
And we have real conversations with real people. Mike, who is our special guest today?
Hey, Doug, you having a great day today, sir?
Man, it's raining in Florida, so what can I say? Liquid sunshine.
Man, we're having a chamber day up here on the north end, so we're excited to be here. We're glad you're tuning in to another episode of the Doug and Mike Show. And we got yet another firefighter story. We definitely been focusing on some great fire rescue and firefighter stories here lately. So today we have the president of the Louisiana State Firefighters, and he is Chad Major. Chad, thanks for being on with us today.
Thank you for having me.
Well, Chad, we were reading some of the news clips. We like to go through and check out the what's happening around the country, and right now it's a exciting time for firefighters and the state legislatures, with a lot of political action going on and advancing some health and safety issues. And Doug and I were involved for a number of years in the state here with our post-traumatic stress bill, and trying to get some wellness and benefit or mental wellness benefits for our guys and gals out there on the front line. And we noticed that you recently were involved in some success there with the PTSD bill. Give us a little snapshot of what's been going on in Louisiana to get that.
Well, I mean, of course, it became the topic du jour a few years back amongst the international, and I sit on the Health and Safety Committee for the international, and it consumes much of our meeting when we do meet. And so I just kind of kept my eye on it, and we were going to approach the subject last year, but at that time there was only a couple of places that had something in effect, and we kind of wanted to let it move a little further along. And so we had something more to look at and something more to say. Well, this state's done it, this state's done it, and this state's done it. We had a Republican senator out of the Shreveport area who's a good friend, and he was ready to go, last year. And we said, no, we're going to cool our heels on it for a while. So we did. And so then during the interim between the 2018 session and the 2019 session, because we meet every year, I did a lot of reaching out to, the state police, law enforcement, EMS groups, even the Sheriff's Association, and kind of got a consensus as to what their feelings were. And surprisingly, they were all like 100% on board. So when we crafted the legislation, we included all those entities within our legislation, as well as the volleys, so that they would be covered, under this legislation. So in the process, the sheriffs elected early in the process in the 2019 session to remove themselves. They have their own kind of insurance plan thing and some kind of makeup for mental health in it. And so they did. We passed it out of the Senate committee, and then we passed it off the Senate floor. It got over to House committee, and there was we had a little roadblock in there. One of the House members, who is not a friend of anyone that works for a living, so to speak, but in the committee, it was called the committee where things go to die. It was created that way, and it was hard to do something. So he amended the heck out of it. It just so happened about 15 minutes before our bill was up, one of the committee members has a friend in North Louisiana that was a fire chief in a little fire district up there, and he had gotten a call that that fire chief had committed suicide. So, time is everything, I guess, and not to use it as a pawn or anything, but, before, we got going real good, he asked for everybody to stand up and pray for that family. And so everybody did, and all the legislators that sat on the committee stood up and prayed, and then we got down to business, and we had several people there that have been diagnosed and suffering from PTSD testify. And all the testimony went good. Well, this one legislator decides to amend the bill. So we let the amendments on, and basically the amendments stripped the bill of what we were trying to do. And it was kind of ironic that, an hour and a half or that, because we had a pretty lengthy not debate, but testimony, giving everybody a chance to testify, that he had stood up and prayed for this guy that committed suicide, and then he done this to the bill. So we walked out of there, and some of my guys, they were like, what just happened? And while I was attending, LSU, I worked there. So I kept my mouth shut, my ears open, and I learned some things. So basically they were confused. I said, well, what just happened is he stripped the bill of any meaning. And they were upset. I said, no, get upset. Just let me think about it. So we got a Republican floor leader. Our legislature is, almost a supermajority on the House side and almost a supermajority on the Senate side, Republican. But we have a lot of Republican friends. So we got a Republican House member to take care of the bill on the floor, and then we got another Republican House member he's a young guy. He's an attorney, and he's quick, and he's 10 minutes ahead of you in a conversation. He knows what he's going to say.
We know those guys.
So he was the right person. So, and I did something I don't typically do. Usually, if I have opposition, I go and tell them what I'm going to do. But I kind of felt slighted by what he did, because I heard there was going to be some amendments, and we asked for them the day before, and they wouldn't give them to us. So we crafted our own amendments and put the bill back in its proper posture to where we got what we needed out of the legislation. And we kind of blindsided them, and they kind of look like jerks, getting up and opposing, trying to fix the bill and take care of first responders in the state. That one that had proposed the amendments, this young attorney guy said, so what you're telling me, you think your amendment made a good bill better? And he said, yes. So he said, what you're telling me is that if your amendments come off the bill, and our amendments go on the bill, then you're going to support it because it was good in the first place. He goes, yes. And he caught himself and he stopped, and he knew he painted himself in the corner. So the amendments ended up passing. So we stripped the bad amendments, put our amendments on the bill, and then it was voted on and it passed unanimously.
It's an amazing story.
Yeah. It was a pretty cool ride. Hectic, but cool. And we prevailed in the long run. So in the state of Louisiana now, for all first responders, with the exception of sheriffs, that they're covered through workers' comp. It'll be a compensable entry on the workers' comp, so they can get the treatment they need and hopefully, get back to work and families won't be busted up. I mean, I've worked my 31 plus years in the fire service, and high divorce rate. A lot of that's attributed to carrying that load with you all the time and shutting down. And I've been there and done it myself. So, it's just one of those things. And then in my department alone, in my career, 6 suicides here. And it's never an easy thing. So hopefully, and put it this way, if we can save one person in the whole state out of all the first responders, I think all the work that went into it is worth it.
No, that's definitely the case. I mean, I've had at least 4 or 5 friends personally that I knew that have committed suicide over my career. So it's definitely very personal. And, the sad part is the families that are left behind that are devastated. It's a quick solution, but the problem remains behind. And that even affects family members because they even have a higher rate of suicide also.
When we testified in committee, the Senate committee was made up of all men. The House committee had a few female legislators on it. And hearing the testimony from some of the guys, the ladies up there, they started, they were crying. I mean, and I think what the general public doesn't understand, and I think that's our fault. Why don't I talk about what they need to do for us? Why don't I talk about what we do for them and help them to understand that a lot of times it's just education. But, somebody's going down the road, John Q. Citizen, and they see a bad wreck or something, and they have to, they traffic slow and they get to ease by it and all that. And, they look because they want to see. It's just human nature, curiosity. And then they see something that never leaves their mind for the rest of their lives. It was some tragic event, somebody got really messed up in that accident or whatever. We see that regularly, and we internalize it. And when I came here, it was suck it up, buttercup. You didn't show that weakness because it was going to be taken advantage of. I mean, you were a wimp. And I'm glad that culture is changing. I'm glad it's, from the time these kids now come here and they're in the academy, we do a suicide awareness class, and we do a class about post-traumatic stress and, and the things that they're going to see during their careers, and, and the fact that they need to be, aware and just don't internalize it, talk about it. And in my department, we're a big department, so we have CISM team, and we have 2 chaplains. And if anybody wants to talk, everybody knows all you got to do is make that call. And I'm sure there's people that's still walking around here today that maybe would have petered out and took an early retirement, or maybe had, done something more egregious and taken their own lives. And but they did ask for help, and they received it, and they learned how to process that which is inside of them, that stuff that haunts them, I guess you would say.
Chad, one of the things that I think I realized at some point in taking some peer support classes and just, taking an audit of what it is that we see and do, because a lot of this stuff, like you said, we just internalize and we accept it for face value most of the time and just try to stash it in a new place, compartmentalize it the best we can. But, there's this sad reality or this truth that, we don't save near as many people as we have to let go and see cross over and not make it. And I think that's something the public they don't understand. I mean, they think when we do CPR on somebody that we save their life. They think when we shock somebody or push the cardiac cocktails that they come back to life, or that when we, extricate them from an accident that they're going to be okay. But, the sad truth is probably 80% or 90% of a lot of the patients that are critical that we come across every day don't make it. And eventually that begins to really compound and add up. What are the things that you've seen in your 30 plus years that are like the biggest contributors, in your opinion, to some of this mental, stress or crisis?
Oh, God. My old man retired off the job, so I'm second generation, and his brother was here too. I had time on him, though. I came before him, but he retired. My uncle retired back in November of last year. So I kind of knew what I was stepping into and stuff, and there's been so many things over the years, and just watching my old man, how he was, become recluse and to himself or self-medicate, drink. I was nervous to have children of my own, and trying to figure out how to do it. And I said, okay, I'm just going to do the opposite. And I've always tried to remind myself of that. But over the years, there's been so many things I've seen, but I'll tell you something that sticks with me, and you'll understand why when I tell you the story. And I testified this to both committees at the legislature this year. I had 4, 5, 6 years, somewhere up in there on the job, and we made a call for a woman in labor. And it was in this huge apartment complex, and it was very confusing when you went up in there to actually find the apartment. There was apartments on the inside columns of the buildings, and there was apartments on the outside. So we found it, and we get there, and she's laid on the couch, and there are 4 children in the room. And I guess the oldest one might have been, I'd say 6 or 7. Cool, I told you a while ago I had a 6-year-old, so I'm comparing sizes. But I can vividly remember this call, which happened 25 years ago. And so she said, I said, how far along are you? And she was at the end of her first trimester. And I said, well, are these your children? She goes, yes. I said, well, you're okay. You're a pro at this. You're good. She goes, no, my water broke. And when she said that, I was kind of taken aback. I knew something wasn't adding up here. So I said, okay. So, so I thought I was going to have to look, and sure enough, the baby was crowning. And she delivered the baby stillborn right there. And, wow. in Baton Rouge, EMS is a third entity. It's public, but it's third entity. We have police, fire, then EMS. So we were waiting on them to get there with the box. And then those kids they just looked terrified. It was traumatic to them. Mm-hmm. And they saw their mom in so much pain and all this stuff going on. And then to see that tiny little thing So I don't know what made me do it, why I reacted that way to this day. Something just told me that I needed to get that away from them. And I remember telling one of the other guys on the truck, the kitchen, a small apartment, the kitchen was right there. I said, see if you can find something for me to put the fetus in. And he had two of those plastic grocery bags. So he put one inside the other. I cut the umbilical cord. I put the baby inside of those bags, and I clenched it together in my fist, the top of them, and I walked out of the apartment. And by that time, the EMS unit was driving up, and I walked out there, and I handed them the fetus, and I told them what was going on. To this day, 25 years later, every time, and my wife hates doing the grocery shopping, so every time I go to the store I check out, I think about that. It's something that I guess will never leave me. And is there anything I could have done to change the outcome of that? No, but it's still something that just, I don't know. And of course, I've been on fires where people deceased in the fire or perished in the fire and dealt with that, or bad accidents. And I sat there one time and talked to this guy for 30 minutes while I was cutting him out, and basically the motor was pushed back all the way in his lap. It was a bad wreck, and I was a drunk driver going the wrong way on the interstate, and then came around the curve on the exit ramp, and this guy was going up, and they hit head on. And young guy too. I talked to him for like 30 minutes, and when we finally released all that pressure off of him, that pressure was basically acting like keeping him from going in shock, basically. Yeah. And his blood released, and he died right there. I sat there and got to know him. I was trying to keep his mind occupied. And so
nothing happened to the drunk driver, so that you finished the story.
Yep, he was limber. He was limbered up. Yeah, he was limber, and he had a couple of scratches on him and stuff. But he went on about his. Well, I mean, they arrested him, but still, he went on with his life.
Yeah, so. That's the sad part. Okay, just that friends and citizens will ask you about, what horrible calls have you been on? And the cartoon was like 5 ghosts of horrible calls. And the caption was, which one of us are you going to talk about today? And, anybody that's been involved in the business knows you can close your eyes and, transport yourself right back to that call, no matter how long ago it was. The smell, the sight, the sounds, the most minute detail. So this stuff is very real.
We've had some great advances and support, and you talk about the CISM, the critical incident, and support teams, and now the IFF is really doubling down on the peer support program. We had a ton of, as we record this, it's the 1-year anniversary of Hurricane Michael devastating the Gulf Coast over here, and we had IFF support team, peer support team members deployed in those areas, helping with the deal with the trauma that these firefighters had over there, who were working week after week after week and losing everything they had, and then they had a member of a firefighter, Brad Price, who was killed operating some equipment a few weeks after the storm. And of course they ran on him, and, just a lot of things going on. But the IFF peer support team was such a, just a wonderful rescue, an angel really, to come in and provide that support. And, we just had a class here in our local in Tallahassee to train some guys and gals up to be peer support teams. And we're not shrinking. I mean, we're not in there. We're not clinical psychologists. We're not trying to be that. We're just actually being a support kind of ladder for people that are in near or in crisis. And even our local universities are doing some things now. Chad, our University of Central Florida, has actually built some virtual reality stuff now where they're going in and trying to recreate some incidents and piping in smells and sounds and, trying to do some therapy, to help treat some of this, the issues that we're having. And because our goal, I mean, you can speak to this, I'm sure, with what you're seeing in Louisiana, but our goal in Florida was, I mean, we want to get our members recovered and back on the job. I mean, that's goal number one, their health and safety, to get them back on the job so they can perform the work and provide for the communities. And that's, that was always our goal. And there are people who are going to game the system, and there are people that you just, have free will and are going to, be bad actors. But at the end of the day, what we did was we created a benefit, a protection to get our members healthy again so they could serve their communities.
Absolutely. I mean, I think that is the goal. And then hopefully, eventually, one day that person be able to retire with dignity and have a quality of life that they've earned. And in our benefit, it includes, it never expires. So I can be retired 20 years. And, and a couple of the legislators asked me about that. They were, that's kind of liberal. That's kind of a very liberal benefit. And I'm like, absolutely it is. I said, and let me explain to you something. And I told them Chris Fields' story. And for those listeners that don't know, Chris Fields was the firefighter on the cover of Time magazine or whatever it was after the Oklahoma City bombing that was holding the baby. And Chris didn't know he was suffering from PTSD. But subsequent to that day, he went on this downward spiral. He started becoming recluse and not interacting with his family. He had a wife and two sons, kind of withdrew from them. Then he started, hanging with the guys at the station. He basically made up excuses in his head and be at the station complaining about his wife or whatever and this and that. And of course, they were telling him what they wanted to hear. Heck with her. We've all heard it. She's crazy or whatever. And it kept on going down. He was drinking a lot and all that till he eventually lost his family and still didn't understand why. He just thought, whatever. It wasn't until he had a friend, and I forget how long, and if I told you how many years after the Alfred P. Murrah building was bombed. I just don't remember how long. It had been years though, several years. And a friend called him. They were going to pour some concrete at his house, and he said, "Sure, I'll come help you." And it wasn't until that day, and he was out there helping, and he had got the smell of fresh concrete in his nose.
Oh, wow!
Brought him back to that day, and he basically collapsed right there and realized that something wasn't right. It overwhelmed him. He said he couldn't hardly breathe. Not from the concrete, but just the smell. It just it took
a trigger
everything out of him. So he eventually sought help. He got help. He got his family back together, and to this day, he came to our convention this past February and kind of told his story. I'd heard it elsewhere, and I thought it was so profound, and I thought it would be an eye opener to our guys that think they're 10 foot tall and bulletproof. And Chris did. He'll tell you that quick. He said, I was the man, wasn't nothing bothering me. And he tells a story, and it's a pretty awesome story. And I think it brings it home to a lot of our folks that, think the same way he thought back then, that nothing bothered him and he was good. And, and what I said earlier about, when I first came on the job, it was, suck it up, buttercup. You don't say anything. You fall off, get back on the horse, just let it roll. You don't talk about it and all that. I've watched many people revert to self-medicating, drinking or whatever their choice of medication was, and ruin their personal lives. Many of them ruined their careers. They ended up, getting, caught on the drug policy or whatever it was, but they just didn't realize what they were doing. But they were trying to suppress those feelings that were inside of them instead of bringing them out and talking about them. And and hopefully again with this legislation, and hopefully it becomes a nationwide thing where every state and province will take it and run with it. That people in our profession in public safety that go to these type of things day in and day out. And a lot of times people say, well, it has to be a huge traumatic event. No, I think on the aggregate, you put enough of them in the closet, one day when you open that door, it's all going to come tumbling out.
Sure.
I hope they get the help they need. I think about the kids of the families that get busted up. I mean, I thought about so many things, and I don't get emotional about many things. I've been in this business too long as far as being the union guy that takes the blame all the time. So, I've really got thick skin, but it's one of the couple of times that I've ever gotten emotional at the legislature about something making its way through. I mean, we've done a lot of good things down there. I mean, year before last we passed, we had several cancers, and then we added every cancer to our presumptive law. And so it covers every cancer there is. And I didn't get emotional about that. I mean, but this, I really did get emotional about because I've witnessed it too many times, and I've never been diagnosed, or anything like that, but I know the feelings, and I'm one of those people that I'll talk about anything, Like my wife says, nothing's sacred with you, is it? And I'm like, don't tell me anything you don't want me to repeat, kind of thing, But so,
saying your filter's not good?
Yeah, my filter's good when it needs to be, but some of those things I just don't think it's that big of a deal to talk about. So I always kind of talked about it, but early in my career I did, and and I'm on my third marriage. I mean, I'm not proud to say that, and I'm not ashamed to say it either. It is what it is, but I have a wonderful wife now that's understanding. And again, I got two children from my first marriage. They're both in college, and then I have my one in first grade. So, and I wouldn't trade it for anything. But I'm a lot more educated and understand the nature of the beast now, and what needs to happen. Learn a lot more. And my old man said, "Hey, you're going to work on a running truck. Pick the most running truck you can get on, and stay there, because one day you're going to be making decisions as a captain that's going to decide whether or not your crew goes home the next day. So you need to learn everything you can." And he was right. So I always made a lot of calls, but I would go home and I didn't want to talk about it. Well, she took offense to it. She thought it was something she did. I would never convey that. And that counselor, I'll never forget when he said it. He goes, "You know what? You don't have to talk about it. Not until you're ready. But you do need to let her know, hey, I had a really crappy day at work. I saw some things that are kind of weighing on me right now. It's not you. It's not the children. I just need my quiet time. I need to process it."
Yeah, you have to decompress.
Yeah.
And one thing I understand that police are starting to teach that I think they have to do in the fire service is keeping your uniform on for a half hour after you get home. And it's like an unofficial sign to the family that dad or mom is still on duty, so that they can decompress.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Chad, we appreciate you joining the show today. We're going to bring this thing in for landing. 16 years as the president of the Professional Firefighters of Louisiana. 8 years there as your local president. You have a retirement date set for May 30th of 2020. And you are you're quite the mentor for so many, I'm sure, and we appreciate the fire service appreciates all the work that you're doing. And I think if anybody right now in the country is looking to pass legislation, I know North Carolina is working hard, South Carolina is working hard to get this done. They certainly look no farther than what you're doing there as a model for that. So we appreciate everything you're doing.
And we would be happy to assist them. With everything, all they got to do is reach out, and we'll give them I keep a file on everything we do. So basically, I know what works in one place may not work in another, but it's a pretty good template.
Well, folks, make sure you follow us on Instagram and YouTube under the Doug and Mike Show. We would also like to give a shout out to our sponsor, Chief Miller. You can find him on Instagram at Chief_Miller_. Have a great day.